Welcome back to Live Before Lock, presented by Awesemo.com. And of course, SuperDraft. I'm Jay Kari. You guys might recognize me. It's been a while, unless you caught one of the shows earlier this week. But I'm joined by the number one DFS player in the world, Alex Baker, making his MLB Live Before Lock debut. What's up, Alex?
What's up, man? Yeah, I got so jealous of watching you do it last season that I'm like, I want a piece of this Live Before Lock action. So excited to talk some baseball, and I think we're going to be getting the last lineups pretty soon, I think. So then we'll have all we need to build these 100K winners.
Yeah. So we're still waiting on a couple lineups. We're going to hit off, we're going to do all the weather stuff. This is a nice little warm-up slate. 2 games. Already got some weather issues. And so, this is what MLB DFS is all about. So, real quick, Alex, do you have, so I saw the tweet on Awesemo Weather. If you guys aren't following Awesemo Weather, you should. But what's your take so far on the weather here in DC?
Yeah, so I'm pulling up the radar right now. It looks like there's not really any storm that's imminently gonna hit DC, and then it looks like as far as if a system does pass through DC, it will be like relatively limited, probably like light rain. I don't think they would necessarily need to stop play, but we could see maybe a little break if that does happen. But for the most part, I don't think it will affect baseball at all.
Yeah. I mean, I saw the tweet. And one thing I like to do, and not to sell right off the top, but I'm going to do it anyways, is look at the postponement risk in your projections. It's been at 0 pretty much all day, and you kind of did a good job summing it up. So we'll keep hitting on weather as we go throughout the show, because more people will stop by and they'll be asking the same questions. But anyways, that's what we're looking at for the weather. It shouldn't really affect what we're doing tonight. So Alex, I've got a few topics here. One is 2-game slate. I mean, what would you suggest people do when they're diving in today? I know everyone's excited, huge tournaments everywhere. Got a really nice tournament over on SuperDraft as well. That is not even close to being filled right now. So go and get over there. But starting off, I mean, should people be looking to play their normal bankroll on this slate, whether it's 1%, 5%, 10%, or if you don't have bankroll management, just all in first slate? I mean, is this a good slate to kind of start it off like normal, or should people maybe pull back just a little bit and not risk it all tonight?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really unique factors about today's slate. So I think that's an interesting question. One is that the slate's priced they've made their tournaments huge for a 2-game baseball slate. And, anyone who's been on MLB DFS knows that 2-game slates aren't exactly like the most fun DFS experience. But I don't care about that. I'm not about having fun. I'm about winning 200K. So, I mean, like, the thing is, these tournaments are so much bigger than any MLB tournaments we've had as far as number of people, that I just don't think anyone's going to be really prepared for the strategy. And it's going to be a little bit of luck that gets you to the top here. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a pretty good slate. I'm not like maxing anything right now. I'm just kind of dipping my toe in. Like, I'm still getting familiar with what, like, which team is, supposed to be good, who's on which team. So I'm familiarized myself a little bit over the last few weeks, but now, of course, we just get a massive piece of news. I don't know if you just saw that, Alex, if you got alerts or whatever, but Clayton Kershaw is going to be placed on the injured list. Wow. He's supposed to pitch tonight. That is 1/4 of the pitchers. So, I mean, we're just getting the true Live Before Lock experience. This might as well be NBA DFS. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you've got quite a bit of stuff to update, but it looks like the chat's telling me Dustin May is going to start. I have no clue if he's stretched out. I don't really know how to react to that, but Alex, first thoughts on Kershaw? I'm assuming he's got to be scratched, right? They didn't come outright and say it, but placed on IL. I'm assuming that's going to be prior to the game.
So now I think you definitely want to play more, because anyone who's not paying a ton of attention is going to have a lot of Kershaw. He was going to be one of the most popular players of the night. And I think that there's going to be a lot of edge here, because the corresponding thing is that I think the Giants will be in a decent spot. Now, I don't want to overreact to the news, because Dustin May does actually look like he's quite good. Hopefully we can get some info of how long he's going to pitch, because that's going to be a factor. But the Dodgers bullpen is quite good too. So I honestly, it might move the needle a little bit for the Giants bats, but I don't know if it would be a lot. I mean, how do you think you're going to handle the Giants here?
So I don't know. I wasn't crazy about them before, but now let's see what we had Kershaw at for ownership projections. Yeah, we had him in the 70% range over on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he was, let's see here. And this will all change. This will all get updated. If you're new with us, bear with us. We usually don't get one of the top pitchers of the night being scratched an hour before lock, but these are kind of unique times. So we're probably going to have a lot of this as the season goes on. Kershaw was about 25% projected ownership over on FanDuel. Assuming May is stretched out or he can go 3-4 innings, I would guess he's probably pretty cheap because he's not supposed to start. But my first thought is, can we play Dustin May?
I think that's a good question, because I don't want to necessarily assume that you can play any guy that's going to start as a last-minute replacement. But this guy, he started 15 games in 2019 in Double-A, 5 games at Triple-A, and then at Major Leagues he started 4 games. I have the projections I had from the last start were 20 batters faced, so that would be about 4 innings, 5 if you're lucky. But it looks like the Dodgers are really training him to be a starter, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him go out full length. But I'm curiously trying to research more about this guy's spring training and stuff, just to double check.
Yeah, no, feel free to do that. I know you're very busy, so that's why you're making your debut here. Hopefully we can get everything to where it should be. I got a bunch of people DMing me and trying to give me information, so I'll try to parse through that while keeping the show going along here. But one thing the deeper dive guys hit on really well, Adam and Laffy, was this new Nats lineup. And so they lose Anthony Rendon, low strikeout guy, one of the best hitters in all of the MLB. And then earlier today, we found out that Juan Soto tested positive for COVID. So now they lose basically their 2 best hitters. And so my first thought is, well, all right, how much Garrett Cole we're playing? And it turns out it's probably not going to be too much for me. Now things are going to change once I recrunch, once we get May in the projections, and that could swing the entire slate. But before Kershaw was scratched, I don't really love the idea of playing Cole. You go through each of these guys, and there's just not that many strikeouts, even without Rendon and Soto in this lineup. There's a couple high strikeout guys, but they mentioned Turner, Eaton, Kendrick. Starling Castro doesn't really strike out a ton. He's below average. And so top of this lineup, I don't really love it for Garrett Cole. Now, 10K, if we can play a cheap Dustin May, he is $8,500 on FanDuel. He's $5,500. He's $5,500 on FanDuel, $8,500 on DraftKings. I think I said that wrong. We could probably look to play Dustin May on FanDuel, even if if we think his max is 5 innings. I still think you might be able to play him, and you probably end up on a bunch of Dodger stacks and just get everything you want in the rest of your lineup. What do you think about May on FanDuel for $5,500?
So here's how I'm kind of approaching this: is that Dustin May, I'm looking more at this, and like based on what they're saying is he was supposed to be a reliever this season. He got left off the roster. In fact, this article is from 1 hour ago that he got left off the 30-man roster. Obviously, things change quick, but I think that let's see. He could be part of a piggyback pairing with Walker Buehler early in the season as Buehler builds up to a full workload. That was 5 days ago. May remains in contention for the Dodgers' 5th starter role. So I think that, okay. He was in an intra-squad appearance Friday, pitching 4 scoreless innings while allowing 2 hits. This is on CBS. So I think that the best kind of projection you can have is around 4 innings. And the problem with that is on FanDuel, that doesn't leave you in contention for the win bonus. And they also award points for a quality start. And that's not going to be possible unless he goes 5 and 6 innings respectively. So based on all that, I think it's pretty unlikely he's going to be the highest scoring pitcher. Now, of course, Cole and Scherzer could get blown up, and then it's just who's decent. May could sneak in. But I think he might be a trap play, especially on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he's 8,500, it looks like. So that's not particularly exciting either. Is that right?
Yeah, 8,500 is what I'm seeing on DraftKings. So I guess if you're playing a bunch of Dustin May on DraftKings, it would basically just be to get off of Max Scherzer, or you just hope that kind of everyone gets blown up and the expensive hitters all go nuts. And then you end up with May at 10 points or 12 points, which is probably closer to his ceiling if we're talking about 4 innings. It is still a good match for him, so maybe he could rack up a bunch of strikeouts and actually be usable on DraftKings. But he does not have as long of a leash as Max Scherzer, obviously not as long of a leash as Garrett Cole, and then he's not going to go longer than Cueto here if things go well for all these guys. So pretty tough to talk yourself into Dustin May after we go through it a little bit, because we're kind of reacting with you guys. I kind of talked about Juan Soto a little bit. Do you think we're going to end up having a ton of these COVID scratches, or just guys getting scratched late and after lock? And then what does that change for DFS for you kind of as a season as a whole? Because we've only got a couple of games to talk about here.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's been trending in other sports are the false positives, like Jimmy Johnson in NASCAR tested positive. He missed a race, but then a day later he tested negative or something. So it's that's going to happen even more often than people get COVID. So especially given that the MLB isn't quarantining the same way as NBA, it seems pretty likely that there's going to be issues. I don't know exactly how that will be manifested, but one other point I want to make about Dustin May before we move on there is that I think a lot of people who aren't paying attention will just swap from Clayton Kershaw to Dustin May because they're not going to react quick enough. Now, Dustin May is 800 more somehow in the DraftKings salaries, so maybe they wouldn't be able to, but going down to Johnny Cueto is pretty hard to do too, so it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, and if you are looking to play May somewhere and kind of take advantage of people that might not be paying attention, SuperDraft is a great place to do that. 2x multiplier. There's no salaries over on SuperDraft, so using May as one of your pitchers might not be the worst idea in the world. Nice pivot off of Cueto, who I think is also a 2x multiplier. So there you go. Pair May with one of those other guys and hope he outscores Cueto is what you would be looking for there. So it looks like we did get ownership updated as well just now. Let's see where we're at. We have a very May. What's that
question?
It's
Dustin May, 51%.
Yeah. So 51% on DraftKings, 51.8 to be exact. And if you guys want to get access to all these tools, Top Stacks, we love the Top Stacks tool, especially. Top Pitcher tool, I think, is going to be a very useful one this season. Ownership projections, regular projections, cheat sheets, articles, premium Slack, all that stuff. You can do so using promo code Manfred, like Rob Manfred. 50% off your first month of any of the Awesemo Plus monthly MLB package. That's $25 off for 31 days of all of Awesemo's tools. And then if you want to upgrade a little bit more, use promo code RESTART to get 50% off the first month of the Awesemo Plus Platinum package. So that's $45 off, and you're getting access to everything on the site. So 2 really great deals we got going on. Those are going away really soon. So if you're thinking about it, now's the time to save $25 or $45, depending on which package you are looking for. 51% Dustin May on DraftKings. Based on what we just talked about, based on the $8,500 salary, that's pretty much a complete fade, right?
Yeah, I don't hate a fade here. I mean, well, I want to reiterate that I think this slate is a really, really good one to play now because there's going to be a lot of dead money in Kershaw shares. So regardless of who you pick, it might be like a good lineup just because you don't have the guys in the Giants and Dodgers who won't be starting in Kershaw. So Dustin May, I think he's playable just because there are 4 pitchers. But I'm really worried that he won't go 5 innings because, I mean, the Dodgers have that track record. They started Urias like so many times and he would go out like 4 innings. So it's like that's the usual for guys that they don't really trust. So that's what I'm expecting for Dustin May. That could be good enough for cracking the winning lineup and maybe billing him out another inning if he's rolling. But I think you're better off with Scherzer and Cole. But that also creates a lot of leverage for the Washington Nationals and the Yankees stacks.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, man, let's talk about these other pitchers really quick. And then it's almost 6:30 Eastern. So we did not forget about the Dong Picks contest. We'll have that going all season. Spags, myself, Alex will jump in. He's going to be on Live Before Lock a few times here. And then Josh as well. So it'll be kind of a big crew, Live Before Lock. Make sure you get your Dong Picks in about 6 minutes. Those will be tweeted out. You can put yours in the replies if you so choose. So you mentioned Cole and Scherzer, $10K for Cole, $8.6K for Scherzer. DraftKings really priced these guys down. They usually do that earlier in the season, and it looks like they price them down even farther than what they usually are for whatever reason to make the game a little bit more fun. You prefer softer pricing, though, right? Like most DFS players should prefer softer pricing. Is that right?
I like the softer pricing because it just makes it easier to build lineups. And when that's the case, people who don't know as much about the sport are going to play more. And I mean, that's been my experience playing sports I don't know that much, like college football. It's like the pricing is too tight. It's just really hard to play. So I'm glad that they have pretty soft pricing. One is like the Scherzer at 8.6K on DraftKings. That's really low. I mean, it's pretty easy to just fit them in your lineup, but then it creates the leverage. So that's why DFS baseball is so interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I prefer the softer pricing. Then you can get in better players. And who doesn't like playing better players? And you can still play the ownership game as well. So I think it's kind of the best of both worlds. When it's too tight of pricing, I see people sometimes complaining that the pricing isn't tight enough. But as an MME player, like getting exposure to a bunch of really good players, really good values, and building some contrarian plays around them is how I would like to approach it. So I don't mind the pricing tonight. Others might have other ideas. Let's go back to the weather really quick. So in Washington, D.C., we had kind of a scare today throughout the early afternoon, but it looks like it's going to be cleared up. DK has a new rule. DraftKings has a new rule this season. I saw you tweet about that. You want to kind of give people the rundown about what that is this season?
Yeah, so apparently there are no games that are canceled due to like not going 5 innings. So in certain circumstances, like you get a 0 even though your guy went out and pitched, but like you're not going to want to play any guys from a game that goes 5 innings or 4 innings anyway, so it's not going to be a huge factor. But it is a little nice to know that this season you're not going to have a guy that gets 8 Ks in the first 4 innings and then ends up with a 0.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like pretty good news too. You can kind of play the weather games, the riskier games, and you might still get a couple guys with at-bats. You might still get a pitcher that pitches 4 innings and has a really good outing and is cheap. So I think for DFS, that's the preferred way to do it rather than, like you said, guy plays, you might be rolling, and then all of a sudden the game gets washed out. Well, now he goes back to 0, but that's not the case any longer. So, and for weather games, for a 2-game slate too, you can just build like the game is pretty much going to play. That's how I'm playing it here. I don't see this one getting washed out or anything like that. But if it was more risky, I would still probably just be playing it straight up, especially on FanDuel, actually. Whereas DraftKings, maybe you play the weather game just a little bit more.
Yeah, I think this game, the Washington game, has the potential to start in a delay, and I think people will freak out if that's the case. On FanDuel and SuperDraft, you don't need to worry because if it doesn't play, then the game will be refunded anyway. But on DraftKings, there's a certain possibility that if the game gets postponed after a lock, then the slate still plays on with that one game. And that's where if you stack the Dodgers Giants game, which not many people are going to do because it requires taking Cueto and May and the batters, then you could have a huge payday. But I don't think that's very likely tonight. I think that it could rain the first hour after 7, but it's not going to rain much longer than that.
Yeah, so we'll mention it one more time throughout the show, but just play it straight up. That's what Alex and I are both planning to do, unless something really weird happens between now and lock. Just pretend like there's no weather concerns, that this morning didn't even happen. We did get the Dodgers lineup just now, and it's a little bit different. Muncy leading off, Betts, Bellinger, Turner, Seager, Kike Hernandez. That's always a fun name if you use XL. Jock Peterson, AJ Pollock, and Austin Barnes. I think I had some Will Smith lineups. So I'm going to go get those out. It looks like Fantasy Cruncher has updated. If that is your optimizer of choice, it is here. You can get that as an add-on with any package. Platinum package is going to be the best. That promo code RESTART is how you get $45 off your first month.
I do notice that this is significant. Actually, Cueto, his projection moved down when I entered this new lineup just because there aren't quite as many strikeouts as I was expecting. So I didn't like him before. Now I like him even less. So not a huge news flash, but.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you what that does, if anything, for Cueto's projection. But he was pretty tough to get behind before. He's going to be even tougher to get behind now. Was there an additional? There wasn't an additional lefty in the lineup. It was. I don't even know. I mean, yeah, Muncy, Bellinger, Seager, and Jock were all in the projected lineup that I was looking at. So maybe just a lower K rate for one of these guys. Near the bottom, Pollock batting 8th instead of 7th. Kike batting up against the righty. You don't see that too often. You saw it a little bit more often last year, but he's been known as a lefty masher for the duration of his career. So it is 6:30 Eastern, Alex, and that means Dong picks. So we're going to give our home run picks. I will let you start it off since you're the boss. I hope you don't take my guy, but I think you're going to go a little bit more contrarian than what my pick is here. I think the crowd knows my pick as well.
Well, I've been a big fan of following this Korean baseball. That was a nice little lead up to the MLB season. So I got to go with the Korean baseball Hall of Famer, Eric Thames. I mean, he's got superpower. He's facing off against, a tougher matchup in Garrett Cole, but I think he has as good a shot to hit a home run pretty much every day is playing as anyone else.
Yeah, for sure. I love that pick. And you did go contrarian batting later in the lineup. I mean, he's batting fifth, so I guess in the middle of the order. I was going to go with Muncy. I mean, it's only right. Like, this guy's been my boy for a couple of years. So leading off here against Cueto, probably going to get 3 at-bats against Cueto. One of them's going in the seats for sure. Dodgers' highest implied total. So just give me all the Muncy chalk, and I'll take my home run, take my lead here. If Spags, Josh, Emac, anyone else from the site is watching, feel free to put your picks in here in the chat. I'm sure Emac has already tagged me. Not just yet. We just did get an ownership update. So let me refresh that. And then hopefully we get this Giants lineup rolling in, and we can talk about exposures, stacks, all that stuff. So let's see. May down just a little bit, but still in that 50% range. I mean, so this is kind of a weird question since he came on so late. Like, do you think in large field tournaments it's even possible for him to get up into like the 50, 60% range, even if he was like by far the best play on the slate, super great value this late in the slate? Or do you think people just set their lineups too early in relation to lock, where like a guy that gets announced an hour before slate lock just can't get up there?
Yeah, I think that, our ownership is an algorithm that we've designed over a lot of slates. And I mean, when you have really unusual circumstances, like a starter being scratched an hour before lock, that's where you can use your intuition to make the ownership even stronger as far as the projection. So, I mean, we don't have Clayton Kershaw projected for any ownership because, we don't project players who are out for ownership, but he's going to have probably single digits, like mid-single digits in some of these tournaments. Yeah. And not everyone's going to build between 5 or 6 and 7 p.m. A lot of people probably already built their lineups, so I don't think he'll be quite that high. But he may be more popular than you think, given that he's a replacement at the last minute.
Right. Yeah, and I hope I don't know. I mean, I kind of hope he's high like that in my tournaments, because I'll just play Cole and Scherzer and just try to get a little bit different with the bats here. How important is – so if we're talking about kind of these huge tournaments today on FanDuel and DraftKings, on SuperDraft, I think you can play more straight up. They don't have salary either, so you're less likely to get duped. There's one less constraint there. But on these bigger sites, in the huge tournaments, like the huge 150 maxes on FanDuel and DraftKings, how important is it to just build lineups that aren't going to be duped hundreds and hundreds of times tonight?
Well, I think that is definitely a consideration, because there's only so many ways you can build a lineup tonight, especially given that you have to pick one player at each position, and most people are stacking. So I think that using some creativity to build your lineups could go a long way. Some ways to do that, like you throw a batter against your pitcher. A lot of people are building lineups using optimizers, and if they're not set to allow bad errors versus pitcher, they might not adjust that setting, and you end up with a lot of lineups where it's all the two team stack that aren't facing the pitchers that you have. So that's definitely one way to do it. Leaving salary on the table in baseball is certainly a decent strategy, because any guy can go out there and have the highest score at their position. So those are two I would employ. But Jake, I know you've been working a lot at trying to avoid the dupes. What's your secret strategy?
Yeah, so I mean, I think you can use ownership sum. I think a combination of ownership sum and ownership product, if you have a way to figure that out in Excel. So it took me a while to figure that out, but I'm just going to try to avoid, like, I want to play great lineups tonight. I want to play high projected lineups. We all believe in your projections at the site. We all use them in ownership, which is, I think, the best tool on the site. Well, actually, Top Stacks is the best tool on the site because it kind of consolidates everything. But anyways, I think if you just multiply, like if you do the product of each of the guys in your lineup for their ownership and then multiply that by how many entries are in the tournament that you're playing, you get a good idea of how often your lineup is going to be duped, and so that's what I use. And I'm weighing dupes pretty heavily tonight, but I'm still playing some lineups that are within striking distance of what the optimal lineup says to play tonight. So I think it's a really tough balance. Like if I knew exactly how to do it, I would be Awesemo. I wouldn't be Tommy Nation 1, but I don't know. It's something that I've just been thinking about in all these different sports. We talked about it in League of Legends, and it certainly applies tonight on a 2-game MLB slate with 117,000 entries or whatever it is over on DraftKings, 300K, 400K on FanDuel. So I'm trying to take down the big one, and I'm trying not to split with 1,000 people when I do it. And so it's all the things we talked about. You play high projected lineups, but ones that are just a little bit different than what the majority of the field's going to do.
Yeah, definitely. I think that just having some sort of angle to give your lineup a unique path to victory is going to be big tonight. So I think one thing that I'm looking at here is like, man, this Giants lineup is taking forever to come in. So I'm kind of wondering, like, are these Giants going to be underowned? Like, are people going to be playing guys that aren't even starting? So that's one additional path is like you just play the guys that the news doesn't come out, like Dustin May and the Giants, but preferably not in the same lineup. But
yeah, I mean, going back to that, another way to not get duped as much, what you just mentioned is allowing a couple guys, maybe up to 3 or even 4 guys you could probably make the case for tonight against your pitcher. So I really have no problem with that on a 2-game slate. We kind of say anything goes, and that's not completely true. Like you don't want to leave 15K on the table or anything like that. But if you wanted to play 2-3 guys against your pitcher, especially if it's Cueto, I think like people think that like the way that Cueto gets in the optimal lineup isn't necessarily he just mows down the Dodgers. Like he could give up 3 runs, 2 solo shots, and pitch 6 innings with 6 Ks. He's going to be good enough to be in the optimal likely. And then if you hit on those 2 home runs that he gives up, for example, then you're going to be in a really good spot. And not a lot of people are going to have that combination of players. They're going to have one of Cueto or Dodgers bats. But if you have both of them, and that's what I'm looking at right now is just having a bunch of Cueto and Dodgers and just trying to hit on the right combo. So are there certain pitchers, like would you only allow maybe one hitter against guys like Cole and Scherzer? Because you can't have them getting beat up too much and still end up in the optimal compared to like Cueto where you allow 2 or 3 or 4.
So there's definitely a path to victory where your starter does well and then the stack comes alive in the later innings. So that's worth mentioning that it is within the realms of possibility that both the pitcher and bats have tremendous performances. But I don't think you need a tremendous performance night from your pitcher, especially if it's Scherzer or Cole. You just need them to go out, give up less than 4 runs, and get some strikeouts, and maybe that'll involve some fantasy scoring by the other team. So I like your idea of maybe like building some contrarian lineups where you have Scherzer and Cole with a stack against them, but I wouldn't try it with Cueto just because he doesn't strike enough guys out.
Okay, so you would allow less players against Cueto.
Yeah, just because, I mean, you got to think that you got to get the strikeouts to get there to counterbalance like fantasy production from the other team. So I wouldn't pick a guy that doesn't have any strikeouts now. I have Cueto for like 3 strikeouts tonight. Fair
enough. Okay, so talking about bats a little bit here in the context of full team stacks, and then individual bats, we're getting a bunch of 1v1s and stuff. Maybe we'll hit on those towards the end of the show here. We've got 28 minutes until we get to lock, 27 minutes now. So we've talked about the Dodgers a little bit. Everybody kind of knows they're the best play. They got the highest supply total. And you could still play Dodgers bats for sure. But if you're looking for a team like a full stack of these other 3 teams that ends up in the winning lineup, the 250K winning lineup, or whatever it is over on FanDuel, who would be your next favorite team from a GPP perspective?
Yeah, so I really like going for a leverage stack perhaps in this situation because if a pitcher is super popular, it's going to really drive down the ownership of the opposing stack. So I think Cole and Scherzer will be the popular pitchers tonight. So just taking one of those two stacks, and I think the superior one is the Yankees. They have the second highest team total of the night. They're only 26% of the ownership compared to 36% for the Dodgers. So I think that you can get an edge there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Yankees. So like Scherzer, he's not the youngest pitcher in the world. What if this is the year that he takes a step back and he starts off slow? Like you can talk yourself into a scenario where he gets beat up a little bit, or he slips on a couple of pitches, misses a spot a couple times. There's some really, really good hitters in this Yankees lineup. And then you're getting on top of that 70% of the field. You're essentially knocking out if you don't have Scherzer in that lineup. So I like the call. I think the Yankees are probably my next favorite stack after that. If you had to choose between the Nats and the Giants here, I know it's ugly, but who would be kind of your next go-to? Would it be the Giants or would it be the Nationals just because of the crazy leverage you get off of Cole?
I kind of like it. I mean, the Nationals are certainly the more talented team. Now with Juan Soto out of the lineup, not quite as good tonight, but I'm really feeling the Giants tonight. I mean, they're not the most likely team to put up runs is baseball though. And their lineup, it may not even come out by lock at this rate. So like basically I feel like a lot of people will set their lineup and then just kind of forget about it unless someone in their lineup isn't playing. But a lot of people might not end up with as many Giants as they should given the timing of this all.
Yeah. Man, you can make a case for anyone on the 2-game slate here because there's always an ownership angle. There's always, whether it's a leverage angle going up against Garrett Cole or Scherzer or what was Kershaw. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree with pretty much anything. So you say you like the Giants. Who would you single out as a couple of your favorite bats in this Giants stack? In the projected lineup, we don't know who's playing quite yet, but who you think is going to be in the lineup?
Yeah, I think, it's hard to like really nail down what this lineup will be. I was looking at like the spring training rosters or lineups and stuff, but then a bunch of guys got like cut from the roster. So, all right, so I'm kind of thinking Hunter Pence because he has this day-to-day injury tag, but I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be in the lineup, given that this is an update from last week. So that's a guy that has a lot of power, and he's probably not a high probability play, but he's a pick to be contrarian one because he's pretty expensive. But who are your favorite Giants?
Yeah, I was really going to like Flores, like everyone's favorite guy against the lefty. I mean, man, it's pretty ugly. Like this guy used to be good a few years ago, and like the last couple of years he's been a pretty below average hitter. But Brandon Crawford, 2,700 on DK. Like I don't know if he was projected to be in the starting lineup before, but if he was going to be much lower against the lefty. Now going up against a righty in May, might even get to that leadoff spot from the lineup that I'm looking at. So there's like your value play. It's pretty ugly in the Giants lineup. So, man, 3.1 implied total. If this were a bigger slate, this would probably be a team we don't even look at. And I guess what's your thought about going up against a bullpen game here? Does that worry you at all, seeing a bunch of different arms for your stack?
So I think that this year is a little different because they do have that new rule where you have the 3-batter minimum. And I think that will make bullpen games a little bit less like dangerous because they're not going to be able to micromanage like the platoon splits quite as much. So that is a positive factor. The Dodgers bullpen, as a whole, they're probably not much worse than Kershaw is. So I think that I don't feel really confident about the Giants matchups, but I'm just playing the it's baseball narrative where pretty much anything could happen on a given day of baseball. And I think maybe people aren't quite used to that because it's been a while. It's been like 10 months or something. So
Yeah.
How do you handle these stacks that just don't have a great probability, but then maybe they're really low on too?
Yeah, I like to go to the top stack tool. I don't know if you're teeing me up there or what, but your top stack tool, it's been one that I've used for every sport. Like you can easily identify, like if you just want to get a quick look at the slate, whether you're hand building or kind of thinking about what you're going to get from the optimizer, looking at the top stack tool and figuring out a way to implement that into your process, I think is a pretty great idea. You can see, okay, which stacks are over-owned, which stacks are under-owned, which stacks are kind of neither that you might want to avoid, which stacks help you get really good leverage on the field. And so like looking at the high-owned stacks on the slate, and everyone's high-owned because it's 2 games, ownership's concentrated, but looking at the highest-owned stack in our top stacks, the Dodgers, so they're highly owned, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily over-owned. You will see some cheaper teams usually end up 15, 20% on a bigger slate than 2 games, but they might only have like a 7 or 8% chance of being the top stack on the slate. So that would be one I'd look to avoid. Here it looks like, based on the top stack tool, pretty much every team is in play. Like there's no one team that looks crazy over-owned or anything like that. Talking about DraftKings, I thought maybe the Giants would get there because over the last couple of days, people talking about the slate, they could put out a bunch of righties against Kershaw. And then like Adam was saying on the deeper dive, people kind of overcorrected on Kershaw. He was like the number 1 pitcher in the league 4 or 5 years ago. And then, DFS players always think they're smarter than everyone else. And so they start to see him decline a little bit. And now they want to start stacking against him. So I was kind of hoping that the Giants would be more popular, but it doesn't look to be the case. But I think the top stack tool is a great barometer for stacks to avoid, and as well as stacks you want a piece of, especially if you're doing multiple lineups. So what else do we got here? How are your lineups coming along here? I know you've got a lot riding on these, so I don't want to bother you too much, but anything you're surprised about across your exposure so far?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm not feeling super great about my lineups because I haven't had time to tinker with them. Like now that Kershaw is out, but I just kind of deleted the Kershaw lineups with all the best of the rest. So I ended up with a bunch of. Actually, one of my highest on teams is the Giants, which feels a little bit weird, but I guess since I deleted Kershaw lineups, I guess that's the natural thing for it to happen. But I'm feeling good about their contrarian value because there's just so much chaos going on today that I think I'm curious to hear like how people are building their lineups, given that we don't know who's going to be playing for the Giants. But I'm feeling people might just not want to set a lineup that doesn't have those green check marks that we're used to. So, how do you feel like the chaos is going to affect how you're building your lineups today?
So I'm going to probably weigh ownership a little bit less, just because there's going to be a bunch of dead lineups, and there's always like a percentage of dead lineups, but it's usually like under 1%. I've done a little bit of digging into this in different sports, but really curious to see what we have tonight in these massive tournaments. Like, is Kershaw going to be 7-8% owned? Like, you're playing closer to rake free if the tournaments even fill up. And like FanDuel, I think, yeah, of course you're going for the huge prize at the top. You should always be going for first, but like being riskier, knowing that you have a better chance of cashing with how huge this is going to overlay. I got more comfortable doing that over on FanDuel. That being said, I do have a bunch of Dodgers on DraftKings and FanDuel. And I'm curious if you would build, like, would you naturally get to a Dodgers stack over on SuperDraft because of their multipliers being lower than a lot of these other teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because they don't have that salary cap, so you can definitely get a roster that's more stacked. But then you don't get as many points. In baseball, like I still haven't really figured out how that all affects each other, but I think stacking is a really good idea. It's probably pretty balanced between the different stacks, but I think that the Giants stack has the highest multiplier, so that's kind of intriguing. And they're going up against Dustin May. Now, Dustin May has a 2x multiplier on SuperDraft, so he's kind of like the lock of the day now. So that makes it less likely people will have the Giants. So I'd either take one of those two stands, probably go on day, or have the Giants, but not really have lineups that don't meet those criteria.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Right now, oh man, this is bad. On DraftKings right now, and I don't think I'm going to fix this. It's day one. I'm not playing. I'm not going crazy here on these contests. I suggest you guys don't do the same. Obviously, if there's overlay and you feel good about your lineups, you should always be looking to throw some lineups in that you like, whether it's on SuperDraft or DraftKings or FanDuel, wherever. Look for that overlay if you can find it. But right now, my highest exposed player, you want to guess, Alex?
This is DraftKings.
Yeah.
I gotta think it's Cole or Scherzer. I'm not sure.
It's not. It's Cueto right now.
What?
The way that I'm building my lineups, but a bunch of my highest owned hitters are also Dodgers. So a lot of my Cueto lineups, looking through them right now, I've got 50 total lineups, and Cueto's on over 80% at this moment. A lot of my lineups have at least one, sometimes two, and I think I got even up to 3 Dodgers against him. So negative correlation for sure. We mentioned that a little bit earlier, but you got to get a little bit weird. And I'm hoping for like 10, 12 points out of Cueto. Maybe one of Scherzer and Cole get roughed up, and then I have the hitters against him that do well. So that's what I'm hoping for here on DraftKings, competing against 117,000 people. Yeah, of course, I have Roman Yossi in my lineup as well, and I can't wait for that. But all right, what else do we got here? One thing that I thought we were going to get asked in chat, I haven't been keeping a super close eye, trying to carry this along. I think I know your answer here, but would you consider rostering any hitters that aren't starting the game here, just so everybody can get this out of their system?
No, I think that's never a great strategy in baseball. Like, I know sometimes people like to play relievers if the pitchers are really terrible on a 2-game slate, but you don't really know what relievers are going to be utilized. It really depends on the game script too much. And then for batters, with the universal designated hitter now, you can't even count on the pitch hits. So pretty much you got to get real, real lucky if you pick a guy that's not starting. And there are probably a lot of people that just like set it and forget it and have that guy anyway.
Yeah, for sure. So don't play anybody that's not in the starting lineup. I know people will do it, but you didn't hear that from here. So what do you think? So we've talked about stacks, and I'm making some adjustments here to my exposures. I can't go with 80+% Cueto. I'm down to like 40% now. So I think I'm more comfortable with that. While I put this crunch in and upload it, what do you think about not stacking on this slate? So if you're using an optimizer, like you're going to end up with guys on the same team anyways, but what do you think about just running the optimizer stack free?
You know, I think it's not very conventional to not stack, but I kind of like it because I think that if you build an intelligent lineup, then on this particular slate, you can take advantage of maybe being able to pair guys that you wouldn't be able to pair together that are good players, and maybe a lot of regulars who make up the bulk of these entries won't really consider that. But here's the thing: is some of these contests aren't even close to full, like including DraftKings, FanDuel, SuperDraft. So I think pretty much if you just play anything half decent with everyone playing, you're not going to be in bad shape. So what about you?
Yeah, I did run a number of stacks without. I did run a bunch of my lineups without stacks, and it looks like they still ended up with at least a 4-man and usually like a 4-2 at the bare minimum on DraftKings. Same kind of thing on FanDuel. I'm less comfortable playing a bunch of players against my pitcher on FanDuel, mostly because I'm using Scherzer and Cole. So it's probably going to be, I think, pretty much all my FanDuel lineups. I have 40 unique ones right now. I think all of them have one of Scherzer and Cole. So, maybe one hitter against my pitcher in that scenario is fine just as a differentiation point, but I'm not going crazy. Whereas on DraftKings, I'm allowing up to 3 hitters in some of my lineups. So you got to know what are the rules, what should be your different strategies as you play on different sites. I'm also going to go make a SuperDraft lineup really quick. SuperDraft, one of the main appeals for me over on SuperDraft is you're not constrained to a $50,000 or $60,000 salary cap. No salary cap actually at all over on SuperDraft. They have multipliers, and basically what happens is if a guy gets 10 points and he's got a 1.5x multiplier, he gets 15 points. So it helps even the playing field a little bit is how I like to look at it. You can sign up on SuperDraft today using promo code Awesemo10, free $10 in your account on your first deposit of $10 or more. So go sign up on SuperDraft. I would do that right now if you have not, because it looks like there's going to be some pretty big overlay in a couple of their tournaments here. So go take advantage of that. Alex, what's your favorite thing about SuperDraft?
I mean, I think it really opens up a lot of strategy because you can play any players, and if done correctly, that could make all players in play when normally in salary cap, you can pretty much eliminate a bunch of the field right off the bat. So I think that has a lot of potential. So I think it's always good to support a site that has a unique idea like that.
Yeah, for sure. Wow, you weren't kidding. I just looked at the other sites' homepages in their lobbies, and man, they're not even going to get close. So yeah, would you recommend playing more of a cashy lineup tonight? If let's say that you've got one lineup, you play one lineup, and it's a cash lineup, and you play it in tournaments, would you consider just doing a couple 2v2s, and instead of making one lineup, you play 5 lineups that are maybe 2v2 or 3v3 away from each other quickly?
It's an interesting idea. I mean, if you just need to get more lineups in, that seems like a reasonable way to do it. But if I was going to build lineups that aren't stacked, like cashy lineups, I'd probably actually try to be contrarian and not stacked, where it's if you just pick, Cody Bellinger and Trey Turner and all the best players, everyone else who's not stacking is going to have something like that. But if you just pick a hodgepodge of random dudes, I think you might have an even better chance to succeed. Which is kind of strange to think, but I think tonight might be the night where that works.
Yeah, I mean, I played a lot of 2-game slates later in the season in 2019, and it seemed like all the time these top lineups were just kind of, like you said, just a hodgepodge of different players. It's almost never going to be the first lineup that you start hand building. So if you are hand building, just be aware of that. When you do put Bellinger and Muncy and all these guys, your lineup's going to look great, but it's got, number one, a better chance of being duped, and baseball is a failed sport. So you should always be trying to get a little bit different than what the field is. If you guys got any questions, feel free to drop them in. Alex has got a crucial 7 or 8 minute stretch here before we get into lock. Have you got all your lineups in?
No, I'm trying to make some last minute ones to account for some of the stuff, but no worries. That's how it goes. No, let's. If anybody's got any questions from the chat, I would be happy to answer them or maybe steer you into the right direction. Let's go over the promo codes really quick because these are some really good deals we've got, guys. Promo code Manfred gets you 50% off
the first month of Awesemo plus MLB. That is an MLB specific package, but you get access to projections, ownership, the top stack tool, the top pitchers tool, which is brand new, just dropped yesterday. As I'm watching over on this other screen, is that Fauci throwing the first pitch? Man, that is terrible. Oh my God. Have you guys? Wow. I'm sure the chat is reacting to this. I got to go back to this. Man, he really pulled it. But he's like 78. So let's give the guy a break. Anyways, going back to the promo code Manfred is how you get access to $25 off your first month of the Awesemo Plus MLB package. If you just want to go all in with us, $45 off the first month. Use promo code RESTART. That's how you get access to Platinum for half off the first month. You won't find a better deal anywhere else. Not only will you get MLB, you'll get League of Legends, which quickly became one of our favorite sports. NHL, NBA, NFL when it happens if you continue the subscription for a couple months. It's just a really good deal. You get everything on the site, and we slash your price in half for the first month. What else do we got here? We did home run picks. Do you want to talk a little bit about the top pitchers tool, Alex?
Yeah, definitely. I kind of brought it back from a couple of years ago where we kind of had a rotating series of articles between top stacks and top pitchers. So it's just like everyone kind of liked how the top stacks put together the projection and ownership into one metric that you can compare versus each other. And the top pitchers is exactly that for pitching. So I know a lot of people they'll want to pick the leverage stack or maybe they want to get a leverage pitcher that's going up against a popular stack. And when you have those probabilities of success in front of you, it makes it a lot easier to make those decisions, to know when you should go against the grain and when you should just play the best players.
For sure, yeah, and it's going to be a really valuable tool. I haven't figured out a way to use the data in it just yet because it's only a 2-game slate. But I think starting tomorrow, that is going to be a super fun tool for us to talk about on the slates. I'm sure Adam will talk about how he uses it by tomorrow. He loves the top stack, so I'm sure he's going to love the top pitchers, and I think you guys will do so too. So as you continue to shovel in more money on all the sites, I was just doing that myself, like $3 on FanDuel. Let's see where SuperDraft is at, and then I will take a quick look at DraftKings. I think I got everything in so far. Oh, wow. The $12 on SuperDraft is actually might get close to filling. We got about 3 minutes until lock, but still a bunch of open spots in $4, the $1. If you're looking to build a bankroll, SuperDraft is a great place to start. Not only do you get $10 of free money with promo code Awesemo10, but you're just competing against a lot of players that aren't using tools like Awesemo.com or other sites. And it's a pretty big advantage with the no salary cap. So I'm going to try to figure out a way to make some profit over on SuperDraft this season. I think if you're not playing there, you probably just don't really enjoy money.
One of the interesting things about it is that I think you might see some familiar faces on SuperDraft. Like I know, Jake, you're playing there. I'm on there. And some of the other grinders play there. But I think no one's really paying that much attention, they're not putting the same level of research into SuperDraft as they are into some higher volume spots. And if you really dedicate yourself to learning the strategy that's specific to SuperDraft, especially in MLB, this is the first MLB contest that most of us have played on there. I think that you can really get an edge and make a bunch of money quick.
Yeah. All right, I'll go over my exposures quick while you finish up getting everything in. Do you have everything now? or not?
I got lineups in, but we'll have to go back and take Will Smith out and AJ Pollock and those guys. So.
All right. Well, you can start doing that now if you want. I see a bunch of Austin Slater in my lineups here, and it's making me a little bit nervous. First day of live before lock, we get a guy with COVID scratched early. That happened earlier, though. We've got a weather game potentially, but Alex talked us off the ledge there. And then we get not only not a lineup, but we get one of the pitchers scratch, one of the main pitchers on the slate scratch. So a little bit of everything on today's live before lock. Did some dong picks. We have a minute left before lock. So if you guys haven't gotten your lineups in, go do that now and then come back for the conclusion of the show.
Yeah, sorry, real quick correction. Yeah, I said Pollock isn't in line, but he is. So I don't want anyone to freak out.
Okay. No one freaked out at you in chat that I'm seeing. So if you guys could, there's 850-ish of you. Please, on the way out, if you could hit the like button. I forgot to ask earlier, but a bunch of you guys already did. So we appreciate that. Really helps us build the channel. And not only can you catch us on YouTube, but you can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, or whatever podcasting platform you like to listen to. We're going to try to get on it. So go find us there, review us. We've also got a giveaway going on for the podcasts. So take advantage of that. Write us a nice review. Give us 5 stars. You could have a chance to win an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for no money. So absolutely free. We have hit lock. Man, what a rush that was.
Yeah. This is the first time in a while, and especially in a sport like baseball where it feels like things are really coming down to the wire.
Yeah. Man, I don't remember baseball being this stressful up until lock. So hopefully the people in the chat enjoyed this show. We will be having the strategy show. It'll be more of a normal flow tomorrow because I think we've got 11 games on the slate. So if your team's not playing tonight, good chance that your team's playing tomorrow or over the weekend. It's going to be a great week of baseball here. So what else do you got for us before we get out of here, Alex?
Yeah, just thanks everyone for supporting the site. I mean, it's really exciting to be back to baseball after this COVID stuff kind of threw our DFS world into chaos. So I think it'll be really great to be able to get back and play some ball. And I hope everyone wins 200K tonight. I mean, I guess not everyone can, but the hope is alive.
Just you.
I got dibs. I called it. So,
right.
But yeah, I hope someone out there listening wins 200K. That's what we're all playing for, is to win these tournaments. So best of luck for everyone.
Yep, get in Slack. We'll have news about the Giants lineup, and then you can make your swaps if need be. Good luck tonight, guys. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button on the way out.